All right, this actually is the last new material that we have in Algebra 2. And we're going to do a problem as a review over what we did on permutations and combinations. How many ways can a basketball coach choose a center, two guards, and two forwards from his team of 16? Okay, this we have to determine if it's a permutation or a combination. Since a coach is selecting people for certain positions, this is going to be a permutation. I went to functions and I'm going to choose NPR. In parentheses, I'm going to type in 16, comma, we're choosing 5. And we see that our answer is going to be 524,160. So my answer would have been answer B. All right, we are going to be going over direct, inverse, and joint variations. Direct and inverse variations you have done previously in Algebra 1, but joint variations are new. So we're basically reviewing over the direct and inverse variations. The general form for an equation of a direct variation is y is equal to k times x, where k is the constant of variation. In word problems, and we will be doing word problems, you may see it shown as y varies directly as x or y is directly proportional to x. All right, on this example, we are told if y is directly proportional to x when x equals 5 and y equals 25, what is the value of the constant of variation? I always like to do a table, and in that table, I'm going to show my x and y values. I'm told that x is 5 when y is 25. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do when it says what is the value of the constant of variation is to find k. So I'm going to plug into y is equal to k times x, replace y with 25, replace x with 5, and solve that equation to get k is equal to 5. All right, the second part of this problem says, what is the value of x when y is 20? So when y is 20, we want to know what x is. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write my equation. And my equation means that I'm going to take the general form and I'm going to replace k with 5. At that point, I am now going to answer question B. What is the value of x when y is 20? Means that I'm going to find x. And to find x, I'm going to replace y with 20. K was 5. And I'm going to solve that equation. All right, the next example, y is directly proportional to x when x is 9 and y is 6. So again, I'm going to do my table. And x is 9 when y is 6. What is the value of the constant of variation? So that means that I want to know what k is equal to. So I'm going to replace into the general form the value for y, which is 6, the value for x, which is 9. I'm going to divide both sides by 9, and I'm going to get 2/3 is equal to k. On the second part of the question, what is the value of y when x is equal to 21? So I know x is 21, and I'm finding y. I'm going to write my equation. And my equation is going to be in the form of y equal kx. And I'm going to replace k with 2/3. I'm going to now find the missing value y by plugging into the equation y is equal to 2/3 x. And I replace x with 21. And when I do that, I'm going to get y is equal to 14. All right, the next type of variation is inverse variation, and the general form for an equation of an inverse, this should say not direct, but inverse variation, is y is equal to k over x. K, again, is the constant of variation. And in word problems, you may see this shown as y varies inversely as x, or y is inversely proportional to x. The examples that we are going to do are very, very similar to what we just did. We're just using the different equation. Question A, y varies inversely to x when x is 10 and y is 25. So I'm going to put my x and my y values. X is 10, y is 25, and I want to find k. This time I am plugging into the equation y is equal to k divided by x. Y is 25, x is 10, and to solve that equation, I'm going to multiply both sides by 10, and I'm going to get 250 is equal to k. All right, I'm going to write my equation. Y is equal to k over x, and we found that k had a value of 250. So my equation is y is equal to 50 over x. In question B, it wants to know what is the value of x when y is 8. So I'm going to find x in this case, and I'm going to plug it into the equation 250 over x. I replace y with 8. And I have an equation that has x in the denominator. To solve this equation, I'm going to multiply, first of all, both sides by x. And then I'm going to divide everything on both sides by 8. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with x is equal to 31.25. All right, here's another example on an inverse variation. Y is inversely proportional to x when x equals 7 and y equals 29. What is the value of the constant of variation? I put my numbers in my table. I have to find the value of k, so I substitute in x with 7 and y with 29, multiply both sides by 7, and I find 203 is equal to k. I'm going to now write my equation, and my equation is going to be y is equal to 203 divided by x. I'm asked to find the value of y, so I'm now going to replace x with 16. And when I do that, I'm going to get y is equal to 12.6875. All right, the one that we have not done in Algebra 1 is called a joint variation, and the general form for an equation of a joint variation is going to be y is equal to kxz. K is again called the constant of variation, and you may see it in word problems as y varies jointly as x and z, or y is jointly proportional to x and z. All right, a couple of examples that we're going to do on joint variation. Here's one. If y varies jointly as x and z, when x is 5, z is 10, and y is 50, what is the value of the constant of variation? I did my table, but my table was going to contain 3 variables, x, y, and z. So I plugged in the 5, 10, and the 50, and I went ahead and put in the 2 numbers from part B. Z was 6 and y was 24. So to find k, I'm going to replace y with 10. I'm going to replace x with 5 and z with 50. All right, I've changed my table. I had the y and the z backwards. Y had a value of 50 and z had a value of 10. So we're going to multiply, and we're going to get 50 is equal to 50k. We're going to divide both sides by 50, and we're going to find that k is equal to 1. So your equation is going to be y is equal to 1xz. All right, the second part, I'm going to replace y with 24. I'm finding x, and I'm going to replace z with 6. To solve that equation, I'm going to divide both sides by 6, and I'm going to get 4 is equal to x. All right, we're looking at a problem that tells us that y varies jointly as x and z. When x is 30, y is 15, and z is 1. And then the other values given, x was 21 and z was 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is use those first 3 numbers to find k. I have y is equal to kxz. I'm going to replace y with 15. X is going to be 30, and z is 1. So that gives me 15 is equal to 30k. Divide both sides by 30, and I'm going to get 1/2 is equal to k. So I'm going to, in step B, to find that missing value, write my equation. Y is equal to 1/2 xz. And then to find y, I'm going to plug in x with 21 and z with 3. So y is going to be 1/2 times 21 times 3. And when I simplify that, I'm going to end up getting y is equal to 31.5. All right, the next type of problems that we're going to be looking at writing equations for each of the given situations. First thing that you want to do is you want to find the words varies directly, varies inversely, or varies jointly. This is going to be where the equal sign is going to go in your equation. And the way this separates the problem is what comes before that is going to go in front of that equal sign. What comes after that is going to be what is going to go after the constant of variation k. So if I'm doing A varies directly with B, I know that my general form for a direct variation is y is equal to k times x, except we're using A and B's. So I'm going to underline varies directly, and this is going to be where my equal goes. What's in front is going to go in front of the equal, and what's after is going to go after k in the equation. So my equation would be A is equal to KB. On varies inversely, I know the general form is y is equal to k over x. I put an equal where varies inversely is. What's in front of that goes in front of the equal, which is m. What is after that goes after the variable k. And in this case, it is on the bottom dividing, and that would be n. So my equation, m is equal to k over n. All right, in this example, P varies jointly with Q and R. I'm going to underline varies jointly. That is where my equal is going to go. I know that a joint variation is y is equal to kxz. I'm multiplying x and z times k. What's in front of varies jointly goes in front of the equal. What is after varies jointly, it goes after k. And that would be the variables q and r. So my equation is going to be P is equal to KQR. Next example, y is directly proportional. So I know I'm doing y equal kx. This is going to be equal. What's in front of directly proportional goes in front of the equal. but we have to read carefully. What is after that goes after the variable k, but it says to the square of x, which means that we have to put x squared. So be sure that you read carefully and don't miss the word square. All right, another example, y is inversely proportional to the cube of x. We know that inversely is y is equal to k over x. I'm going to underline inversely proportional. So what is in front of that goes in front of the equal sign. So it's going to be y is equal to k divided by the cube of x, which is going to be x to the third power. All right, the next problem is a combination of variations. It says y is inversely proportional to x and directly proportional to z. All right, so we are going to underline the first terms, and that's going to give the base for our equation. So y is inversely proportional to x is going to be y is equal to k over x, and directly proportional to z. If something is directly proportional, that means that you are multiplying that variable times k. So we are going to put that variable on top because it is directly proportional to z. So if you look at the problems and ignore that z, you've got the first step, which is y is equal to k over x. If you ignore the x on the bottom and you just look at the top part, that is the part that represents y is directly proportional to z. So if the second part is directly proportional, it's going to go on top. The second part has said inversely proportional, you would have put it on the bottom.